Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. This is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, so let's get started. And this week I had a pretty hefty haul, especially comparing to the previous weeks, and I have an opportunity to talk about 14 books, which is cool. So let's get started. Number 14 for me is Bettie Page issue 1. So Bettie Page, I really loved what David did with the previous volumes. I really enjoyed her sass, her snark, and obviously the espionage aspect of her character. And I think that's the reason why this one was a little disappointing for me, which again I am disappointed for because I like Bettie Page. I like Carla's writing a lot. I've been really enjoying her Spider-Woman, but I think it just didn't resonate as much as I did with the previous volume, where you really had that sass from Betty and again all the elements of the espionage aspect of her character. And here they focus a little bit more on her acting, and which I was actually really excited for because I think that was the element that was missing in David's run a little bit, because they focus so much on the second life, the double life. And here, I'm not even sure if she is an espionage agent anymore. Like, I don't really know her role, and she felt very passive in her own book. She felt a little pushed around here. She didn't get the role she wanted to. She's like, okay, I guess that's fine. And then by the end, she gets the role. The mystery wasn't really doing it for me. And the dialogue kind of felt a bit repetitive. One of the characters' names, Pal, was kind of mentioned a bunch of times in the beginning of the book, and it got a little repetitive for the dialogue. So overall, was a little disappointed with this premiere. I will give the second issue a shot, and I'll probably be following this book digitally. So I'm going to give that 2 stars. I thought the artwork was really good for this book. I do like the setting. I just hope that Betty's character is showcased a little bit more with the rest of this arc. Moving on to number 13, which is the big book of the week, or at least one of them, and that is Empyre issue 1. So I really wanted to give this event a fair shot. I'm usually not a big cosmic Marvel fan by any means, or really a fan of space sci-fi stories. So this was kind of out of my wheelhouse, but I do like the Fantastic Four. I like what Dan Slott's been doing with the Fantastic Four, which is interesting to say because usually the Fantastic Four are a bit more of cosmic adventures. But I do like when they ground the stories. That's kind of where I enjoyed them the most, and dealing with the family aspect. And that's actually what I enjoyed the most of this issue, was the Fantastic Four, and I enjoyed the issue 0, and you could tell that it was Al and Dan kind of writing their separate stuff. I actually would like to confirm that, but yeah, story was both. Well, actually, Al Ewing did the script for all of them, so story was just Dan Slott and Al Ewing for plotting. So I actually thought that they both scripted their own sections. But that's kind of how it felt. I felt like the Avengers didn't really go into the character moments as much. It was definitely more about the action and the battle to come with the Skrull and Kree. And then I actually liked the Fantastic Four part because it delved into a little bit more of their family dynamic, as they have these 2 kids that are part of, or at least connected to the war, because they both were fighting each other in the issue 0 issue. And then after that little introduction with the Fantastic Four, it kind of leaves the building for me. It very much goes into exposition about the Skrull and Kree. I like that we got a little bit from Teddy. Teddy is actually the reason I wanted to get this book, because I am a very big Young Avengers fan. I wanted to see the human element of why Teddy did this, but you don't really get to see that besides, like, okay, I kind of was forced to do it because I wanted peace, and obviously the peace is bringing this war. So what is Teddy going to do that he's very much in the middle of this as a hybrid, or of a child of both a Kree and a Skrull? So we'll see where this one goes. I'm going to probably get more of the tie-ins. So I don't know if I'm going to continue Empyre. I don't really think the issue 1 really did it for me. And I don't know if this is really going to be my type of arc. So I'm not going to pick up all the rest, especially at a $5.99 price tag. And the rest of the books are probably going to be $4.99 or $3.99. So I'm not going to get the next issues, but I am going to try following it through the tie-ins. So I'm still going to pick up Fantastic Four. I'll probably get like an XMen mini. I'm definitely going to get the Teddy one-shot next week. So I might get some Empyre books here and there because it seems pretty hard to avoid it. But I don't know if I'm going to be getting the main series as of right now. Unless someone says, oh my god, you got to pick up issue 2 or you got to pick up issue 3 and tells me an amazing moment. But I think I'll be dropping this one. Artwork was really good for the book though. And that's something I've enjoyed. It definitely fits for an event series. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars. Sorry I rambled a lot about Empyre, but it is a big book from this week. So let's get moving on to number 12, which is Strange Adventures, issue 3. So Strange Adventures, also a book I've been kind of torn with because I do like Tom King's writing, especially when he is talking about a character that is lesser known. Really enjoyed his Mr. Miracle run, obviously enjoyed his Vision stuff, but I was very lukewarm with his Batman issues, especially post issue 50. I was a little lukewarm with it. And Adam Strange, I want to love this book, and I haven't quite been able to dig my teeth into it. There's themes I really like, especially with how does the world view Adam Strange, what has he actually done, and how does his community of superheroes view him. And I think that's such an interesting concept that I hope gets dug deeper into. And the artwork's amazing, but one of the aspects of this book that's, supposed to make this unique is that it's telling from a story from 2 different timelines and point of views. And I think that's actually what makes me hold back on this book, and what's making me not fully enjoy it is that it focuses so much on trying to tell 2 different stories. It doesn't really feel like a linear story, and I'm not really getting as much out of it, especially from the character beats. And also because I really don't know much about Adam Strange. I don't really know much about his wife, so so far everyone kind of feels not two-dimensional, because I really do feel like Tom King tries to flesh out these characters, but I feel like I'm jumping into like a season 5 of a television show. Like it's not quite new reader friendly, where I think a book like this should be new reader friendly, or it's just not giving me enough of the characters to say, oh my god, I can't wait to see where that goes. So especially his wife, where there's something that really interests me, this kind of like jadedness about her, especially from the artwork, but I don't really know how she got there, why she's acting like this, and I don't really get the emotional heartstrings from this book. That connection's not really there for me. And also it just feels very similar to a lot of things Tom King has done in the past, so what makes this book different from his other work, I don't know yet. So Strange Adventures issue 3 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 12, I believe? That was number 12, and that was 3 stars. Sorry, not 2.5. I do like the artwork a lot, actually, for that book. Especially just the cleaner artwork, and then the more cloudy artwork with Mitch Gerald's, I think is really cool. Alright, moving on to number 11, which is an Empyre tie-in, and that is Fantastic Four issue 21. And I actually, as you can see, like the tie-in a little bit more than the actual event, because it focused on a very small bit of it. I like that it was about the kids. There is some crowdedness to it where, I think that we've definitely seen from Dan Slott scripts before, where there's just so much going on and so much action that you kind of miss some of the stuff in the middle, some of the slower beats here. You have a lot of characters in this issue. You got Wolverine and Spiderman joining the fight. You have the kids. You have Alicia. You have Johnny's new wife, girlfriend, fiance, and as these 2 kids are fighting each other from the Empyre books. So there's a lot going on, but there's some really good beats. I enjoyed that the kids are reversing their role, where they're always the one making trouble, and now they have to be the babysitters and kind of be like their parents to try to make sure everything's calm as their parents are dealing with a big war in space. And I also liked Alicia here. I love that she's kind of just part of the team, and I felt like it was a little repetitive, where she's like, no, I can do this, don't judge me for my blindness. I feel like that doesn't have to be said. Especially as many times as it did. I think Alicia could just prove and has proven that, she shouldn't be looked at just for her disabilities. So I felt like that could have been a little smoother, but Overall, I enjoyed this issue. I'm definitely going to continue reading Fantastic Four, even if it's tying into Empyre, which I'm not reading. And hopefully I'll be able to still figure out what's going on in these stories. If not, I guess maybe I'll have to drop it for the time being. But I'll definitely get the next issue to see where this story in particular goes. And I thought it was good. And I like that we got to some more of the emotional beats that we obviously didn't have as much of a chance with the event itself. So Fantastic Four issue 4 gets Fantastic Four issue 21 gets 3.5 stars, I think, or maybe I gave it 3. I gave that 3 stars. So moving on to number 10, which is a free comic, which is the Free Comic Book Day X-Men issue 1. Now there is a big story in the end of this, not just an X-Men story. We do have the new Dark Ages book coming out as well, where I'm going to do a whole topic video on that. It's either going to be released tomorrow or Friday. And it's going to be about Iron Man, so I'm not going to discuss that too much here. But I will say that's the part I probably enjoyed the most of this book, and I'm excited to speculate what that all means, and that Tom Taylor is doing his own event for Marvel. And the X-Men stuff was actually the thing I was a bit disappointed with. It just felt very like, all right, here's some cards, here's some little teases. Every page felt like its own teaser and not really a full story. So I was a little disappointed with the X-Men stuff. But the reason why this was higher was for the second part of the issue, which is the Dark Ages, and that we didn't really get a press release about it beforehand. This is a pretty new event, so I like that we were surprised about it. So X-Men issue 1 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 11? That was number 10. Moving on to number 9, and that is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 44. This is, I would say, a prelude to the prelude, because we get to learn a little about Sin Eater and who he is and how he's connected to Kindred. There's also this other character that's driving a car with Peter, and it could have been a dream. It might have been a dream in a dream. I was a little confused by that. But we still don't know who he is and how he's connected to Sin Eater. But I like the ending. I like once we got to the conversation with Peter and talking about MJ and how much he misses her. And then we get to see that was, yes, it's a dream by I want to say Madame Mask. That is not her name. Julia, whatever her character is. Madame, the one who tells the future. It's been a while since we've seen her character. But yes, Julia Carpenter, and she sees the future. We get to see that other Spider characters are going to be involved in this, and still only teasing about who Kindred is and what he's up to. It's 44 issues in. I kind of wish we already knew who Kindred was. I think they've been teasing a little bit too much. But I like the high pace of it. I like that most of it was a car drive, and you get to learn about Sin Eater there. And then, it's a little disjointed because of it, but overall I thought it was a pretty good prelude to the prelude. I know next week we're going to be learning more about it with the actual prelude. Artwork also, I think, fit that kind of fast-paced, pedal to the metal type storyline. I enjoy the artwork overall. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I thought there were some good moments here, but it's still need a little bit more meat for the story. It's a little repetitive from what we've been getting. All right, moving on to number 8, which is Family Tree issue 7. And finally, we're in the future, because that was a really interesting cliffhanger for issue 5, where we get to see the brother who is actually kind of our hero and our narrator, and where the world has turned because of these tree creatures. Is this a good thing, a bad thing, indifferent thing? Definitely not an indifferent thing, but it's interesting to see. You still don't know what side he's on and what happened to his sister because she was planted. And that's the aftermath of this issue. It's a little slower because of it, but we get to see where all the characters are present day after Meg has been planted in the ground. We don't quite know what that means, but we see everyone's reactions to it, and it's a very reactionary issue, important emotional issue, but plot-wise, it doesn't really do much in this one. But I still love this book, and I'm excited to see what the story's all about, because I feel like it's only scratching the surface of this world, and I'm really excited about it. So Family Tree issue 7 gets 3.5 stars. As always, artwork is really good and fits very well for this book, and really gets into those emotions that were necessary for a reactionary issue like this. All right, moving on to number 7. which is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 51, which I got the foil cover. It's cool that they do the foil in the background too. And this issue also kind of slows things down. I know that's kind of the theme of this episode, it seems like. But because we had so many action and plot-driven storylines leading up to the end of Necessary Evil, I guess that was the end of Necessary Evil, and we finally get to see, okay, what are the Power Rangers doing now that they're separated from the Omega Rangers, and that Draken is back. Not Lord Draken, but Draken's back and trying to get his power again and trying to manipulate everybody, and everyone's too smart for that. And, you know, still them dealing with their day-to-day, going back to high school, dealing with what they thought was an easy monster against Zed. And what I liked about this issue is that Zed is definitely a bit more of a powerful character, where in the end he makes these like Dark Rangers, and, you know, he's showing that he's not just Rita's replacement, even though Rita shows up in the end, and I'm sure her presence is gonna maybe outshine Zed a bit, but I like that. I like that he's putting his stamp on the villain side of the Power Rangers. Now, the reason this is a little lower, the artwork is definitely a big difference from what we were getting with the other events. I don't know if it was as clean, but it kind of worked for Lord Draken. I kind of like that it was a little messier for a darker character like that. But I don't think the emotional beats hit as much with this style of artwork. And again, there were times where the line work was a little sloppy, but in some regards that worked with Lord Draken, but not any of the other characters as much. But overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. It necessarily slows things down, and obviously very excited to see where Power Rangers goes with all the newly announced series as well. I'm curious if this series is still going to be going on after that, or if we're just going to have 2 separate Mighty Morphin and Omega Rangers books. I don't know if this is still going to be the flagship or not, but curious to see where that goes. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7, I believe. Alright, number 6 is Spider-Woman issue 2. I told you this was a bit higher. I really liked Spider-Woman issue 1. I thought it was a near perfect first issue, and I really like the emotions and the plot for this issue as well, where we get to see why Jessica's sick, and it has to do with her past and her origin stories of her father and his experiments, and how that's related to the father of the girl in the wheelchair. I think her name was Rebecca in the first issue, and how her sickness was related to Jessica, and why their experiments are the same, or why they have to test Jessica. Now, the reasoning why Jessica actually agrees to it, I thought was a little too quick, where it's just like, well, this could also be about your son. Your son could be sick as well. And I kind of wish we showed that. I wish we got to see a moment where Jerry looks sick or whatever, because that felt a little too rushed for me. So there are some things that kind of lay out a little bit too conveniently, but I really like the emotions behind it. I like that we're digging deeper into a side that we don't get to see as much for Jessica. I feel like Jessica is usually about her being an Avenger or being a mom since the previous volume, but you don't really get to see her past and origins as much. So I like that they're digging deeper and telling us a different story with that. And you got a good cliffhanger with some good action in this issue as well. Artwork is really clean. It makes a costume that I wasn't so excited about look really cool, and I like the colors for it. So giving this one 4 stars. I really been enjoying Spider-Woman. Glad it's back, and hopefully we're getting a consistent schedule with the series again. Moving on to number 5, which is the Immortal Hulk, issue 35, and I got the on sale Wednesday cover to support comic stores, and to I just liked the idea of the cover. I thought was funny. So, but yeah, Immortal Hulk, this issue picks up in a lot of ways. So we get to see Hulk himself kind of unraveling what's going on in his brain. It took 35 issues, but he's starting to, and how the world is viewing Hulk as well, and starting to see him as a hero, and the leader controlling him in some regards too. But then we have some really cool character beats in between here, where, especially between Betty and Bruce, where Betty shows that the monster that she has become is her, and Bruce doesn't believe that. And this whole idea and allegory of what the Hulk represented in the first place, I find so interesting, and seeing from a different point of view of different characters. And I really enjoyed that aspect, and I'm sure that's the beginning of many conversations for Betty and Bruce. And I hope that doesn't mean that Betty's going to be written off for a while, because I love Betty, love seeing her, but I thought it was a good conversation and showed, hey, I'm tired of being in a cage because of you. Let me take control of my own life. Even if, her being a monster, we'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And then the ending is really what brought this to my top 5, because we have Hulk in the sun, and again, he's being controlled by the leader, and he blows up in the sun. So does that mean that he's dead? What is going on? That was a really good cliffhanger. Got me hooked for the next issue. So overall, gave this one 4 stars. I do miss the normal artist Joe Bennett's artwork for here. That definitely that hauntingness. I don't think the artwork was as strong for it, but still, did its job. It wasn't as intense. But maybe, it was a little bit of a less intense issue because we're seeing Hulk in a brighter view. So if you work it that way, it makes sense. But I still do like our regular artist for this book. So Immortal Hulk issue 35 gets 4 stars. And then it's number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Teen Titans, issue 43. This book keeps hitting out of the ballpark for me, and I was a little concerned in the beginning because I was like, oh, they're just focusing on Robin. What's this going to be about? And I think it really did a great job at connecting all the pieces and finding out that Robin might have killed Brother Blood. I think it's still out for the jury there, but at least he wants everyone to believe he killed Brother Blood, and he has this idea that fear and instilling fear more than Batman is what gets the job done, and we really get to see that through him and the KG Beast who shot Dick Grayson how many issues ago and made him Rick. Now, I do wish that motivation was a little bit more telegraphed of, like, why does he want to instill fear so much, and where did this come from out of the blue, and I kind of wish there was more moments with that for Damian, but I really like the rest of the team's reaction and them trying to bring him back to reality and not working, and why this team is so special and different from the other Teen Titans is that they've all made mistakes and they're all in some regard have been quote-unquote bad people. So it's nice to see that dynamic of still each other wanting to save each other, and I think that's one of, again, the more unique aspects of this volume and what I've been enjoying about it. Also really like the artwork. I think it's a little less cartoony, also a bit grounded, so really solid book, and excited to see where this one goes. And if you're not reading Teen Titans, this is actually a pretty great place to pick up this and the last issue. So giving this 4 stars, and that is number 4. So moving on to number 3, and that is Free Comic Book Day again. Ranger Slayer, The Road to Ranger Slayer issue 1. So I didn't know anything about what was going to be in the Free Comic Book Day issue. I actually just thought they were going to just have the Ranger Slayer book that was coming out next week, and I don't know why I thought that, but we do get a little bit of a preview. And honestly, like, I would say most of this was reprint, and which is weird to say, like, number 3 pick is a reprint, but I just loved how the original stories and the preview pages and the reprint flowed so well in this book. So you have a couple of pages, which came out a while ago, so honestly I kind of needed the refresher of what happened with Ranger Slayer, even though you know the minor details or the big details, you do want to be reminded of the more minute things happening in the story. So I enjoyed that, and then you have this middle story between actually seeing what Ranger Slayer did. What did Kimberly do to her friends, and nasty things that she said to Trini. And I really liked the art style for that, and the bit more of the, I don't even know how to describe the art style, but maybe a bit more moody, and I enjoyed that. And then we get to the 1-page preview of what we're going to get next week, and Kimberly having to go back to that world and be like, oh man, I was a shitty person. I didn't mean to be, but how are my friends going to forgive me? Like, I don't want to be here. So I just thought it was just flowed so well. And if you've never read Ranger Slayer, this is a great jumping on point and a really good way to the road to get to the Ranger Slayer comic book for next week. So I really enjoyed this one. I'm a huge Kimberly fan, as you can see, and I'm really happy with the route they've taken future Kimberly and to see where she's gonna head after this. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Red Mother, issue 6. Man, I love this book. You know that. I know that. And it continues to be awesome. And it's interesting because this whole entire show, there's been a lot of books where I say, oh man, it was slow, or what, I kept saying that, as we know. And this book masters slow. I don't think slow necessarily always means negative, but you need to know how to control your pace. And Red Mother does that expertly. And with this issue, we get to see Daisy go to London. She's trying to forget her issues with her life, and she goes there and does. 3 weeks later, she has friends. She's doing good. She's having scotch with the boss. She's making this puzzle. She's even flirting at a bar. Life is kind of going well for her, and then every single time life starts to go a little well, it doesn't, and she's reminded of her past and her PTSD and the things that she keeps trying to dig underneath and hide. And we get to see that possibly her friends that she thought were supportive and actually were pretty good friends. Like, they walked her home late at night, and they're like, nope, you're not going to walk home by yourself. And then you're like, oh, they might work for the Red Mother, or is that in her mind? Like, what's going on? I love the mystery behind that world and how it's connected to Daisy. So I just thought that was done so beautifully. And it's just great to see Daisy. I love seeing her day to day, and you can't say that about every comic, because again, there's books where you're like, they take it too slow, but the slice of life narrative mixed with horror is done so well here and actually builds that tension that you need in a horror book. So love this book. Artwork splendid for this book, as well as we get to see the Red Mother elements creep into the storyline. So really solid issue. I give this 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to my number 1 pick, and that is Captain Marvel, issue 17. I had an absolute blast with this book. I actually thought this was going to be an Empyre tie-in. I didn't really know what was coming out with it, and I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be Empyre related. And then I find out it's a filler issue, and most of the times you're like, oh man, filler issue, who needs that? But filler issues are also important. Sometimes you're like, it goes back to the pacing thing I was talking about before. There's times to tell a filler issue, and there's times not to tell a filler issue. And Captain Marvel timed it perfectly, because we have, yes, what's going to be going on with Empyre in literally the next issue, and then previously we had the whole entire Dark Captain Marvel story. So you had a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of action, and you're like, oh, okay, I need a little bit of a breather. It'd be nice to have some fun, more of a fun side of a book instead of the dark and gloomy. And Kelly Thompson expertly delivers that for us, where we get to see game night, right? And you think, all right, this is going to be a funny issue, and ends up being really action-packed and really well done, and a good mystery and a good superhero story, where we get to see very different dynamics of characters: Carol, Wolverine, Jessica Drew, Hazmat, and Miss Marvel, Kamala, which has been so long since I've read a Kamala book. So this also was just like, oh my god, finally I get to read Kamala. It's been, months since we've gotten a book from her, or anything from her, because of Outlaw being delayed. So, or outlawed. And it was really just cool to have those dynamics play out, and the adults say, all right, let's go and follow the kid and see what she wants to do for game night. And it ends up being, a very bad choice, but they also end up helping people, because he could have corrupted others and other civilians, so it was a good thing that they went there. And yeah, there was maybe some convenience in that regard, but I had too much of a fun time to really focus on that, and there's a lot of great jokes, and again, it just, with so many events going on in the stop of comics, and then, the comic industry still figuring out what books to come out, as time is passing here, it was kind of nice just to have something that was a filler and just like there to have a fun time, and something I feel like I needed for the week, and it worked. I had a really good time with it. So I'm giving that 4.5 stars. The artwork was really fun as well. Worked with the personalities, and yeah, it was a good issue. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think? This is Comic Uno. Go definitely follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics, like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. The store for my comics are in the comments and also the description below. And also every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly. We discuss our favorite comics and comic book news, and go check out our comic podcast. Thanks, guys.